Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Begin. Welcome to our November Conservation Commission meeting. Big night, full moon, election night, Conservation Commission. What else do we need? I don't know, but we're here. Thank you guys for all coming.
Beaver moon.
The beaver moon?
Beaver moon, yeah.
And there was an eclipse this morning, apparently. Did anyone get up early to see it?
So I got up early to see it with my son at like 5:45, and we couldn't find it. So I don't know if it was already
It's too low.
Yeah, too low. So we tried to find some high points in Exeter.
Rains Barn.
I live right next to it. I couldn't find it.
I got up early
So-
for 5. Found it, but it was low. It was behind trees.
Yeah.
It was so low, it was very difficult to get a full view.
I missed my window.
Huh.
3 more years.
It must, so it's this weird position where the moon is in the shadow. The Earth is creating a shadow on the moon from the sun, so they're like in a line. So it makes sense it's got to be low in the sky when somehow they all line up like that. Okay, this is good. Non sequitur.
This is good.
Nope. Why don't we introduce ourselves?
Hi, Don Clement, Conservation Commission.
Kyle Welch, Conservation Commission.
Andrew Koff.
Connor Madison.
Nick Campion.
Sorry, I cut you off in your chair.
Murphy.
All right. We don't have any public comment. So our first item tonight is the floodplain ordinance that has been drafted by Kristen.
So just, I know I have discussed this in the past. I thought I would just take that opportunity to use your packet to provide you with a. We have been working with the Planning Commission to review our floodplain. And basically the main change that we were working to require 2 foot of freeboard from base flood elevation. That would our new construction and substantial improvements within the special flood hazard area to be elevated above base flood elevation by 2 feet. And currently our regulations have 1 foot for, I think it's 1 foot for residential, and then at or above for commercial. And so it is a change. And then over and above that, I thought this board would have interest. The additional aspect that we're hoping to add through this March, if it's approved by the voters, is to establish an advisory area. So we have our special flood hazard area that's designated by FEMA. The sea rise maps that you've seen in the past that model sea level rise extend beyond that. And so in the space between the special flood hazard area and the extent of our sea level rise boundary, we are proposing to establish this advisory area where we recommend people follow the required regulations for the flood hazard area, but it's not required. And so
Is that a large area?
it's not very large. The packet did have maps. I didn't think to. I probably should have brought a copy, and maybe I could bring it up if you want to.
No, it's okay. I have it here. But
Yeah. So really, Water Street, there are some buildings
advisory area.
that would be added. And then also, for example, on Portsmouth Ave, the water treatment plant would be added as well. That's another one. But you can see, basically, Water Street is the focus area. There's not too many other spaces beyond that.
Right. That makes sense that area should be included. Looks like some of the properties are bisected by that area.
And so this change wouldn't alter anyone's flood insurance requirements or anything like that. It's not. He's going to bring it up for us. It's not. It wouldn't change flood insurance rates or alter in any way the
Page 12.
Cost to individuals, and it would simply be advisory. Yeah. So on the inset.
So I think that's important to note, right? Especially if this has to go before town meeting and get voted in.
Absolutely. So this is proposed as a zoning ordinance. And so the process is right now, I've met once with the Master Plan Oversight Committee, which is the committee now that functions as our former ZORC, if you were Zoning Ordinance Review Committee. But they, kind of chew on the language and think about how it would apply, make recommendations and changes before it gets to the planning board. and then it's read a couple times at the planning board, and they decide whether they want to move it to the voters. And then ultimately, if they do move it to the voters, the voters would need to approve its adoption. And then it would become effective in our zoning regulations. So I was not prepared to step through the language. I didn't know if that's something we needed to do here, but if you do have comments or edits, I'd be happy to, accept those and bring those in the amended language as we move forward.
I mean, I took a quick look at it and it seems very reasonable. So
the other thing that we added was to formalize the process of what applicants provide us with and what we receive in terms of ensuring we have a good record, that, when someone does build out of the flood zone, they elevate the property above the flood zone, we receive a copy of that certificate. They have to have it for their flood insurance purposes, but keeping a copy here is a benefit to the town. It's a required action, but it doesn't always happen. So we sort of formalize that process too.
So we have flood zone A and flood zone AE.
Yep.
The advisory area, what does that mean if this is adopted to someone who has a structure in the advisory area?
So here, let's zoom.
Which is
So
the purple, I guess, or
is it okay if I take over control, Bob? Will that mess stuff up? No. Yeah. So, so the flood zone here, here, I'll do it. The pink on this map, anything that's currently in the pink would be required. If you're in this portion, the blue portion, we would, when there's new construction or substantial improvement, and that's defined in there, spending a certain amount above its assessed rate, we would recommend that you follow the same procedures as though you were in this floodplain, this flood zone. So it would mean raising the elevation for the lowest level of the structure 2 feet above base flood elevation.
but not required.
But not required.
Why would we require it when it's pretty... The feeling is that in 2050 that area will be prone to flooding.
Right. Why wouldn't we? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Why wouldn't we? I don't know. I feel like it was kind of like a step in between. So your recommendation is we treat that whole area that way.
Well, I mean, if we don't, and people say, okay, yeah, it's advisory, but I don't want to do it. And 20 years down the road, it becomes very prone to flooding because of coastal sea rise. And it's saying, oh, now I've lost property, damaged property. Would have been better off enforcing it prior.
So the other thing that you should know, so what informs that purple area on the map is the proposed sea level rise in 2100 plus storm surge. And so that's 4 foot of sea level rise. So it is significantly greater than the 30-year span. But because buildings are, when you're investing that much, you expect the lifespan of a building to last till 2100. So that's why we chose that elevation. I think it would be tough. I don't know. I think
I'm just throwing it up.
Yeah.
Again, we say 2100, it seems like it's forever. It's off. It's only
it's not
79 years away.
Yeah.
Oh, 78 years away. It's just a thought, you're trying to be precautious, proactive.
Yeah. I think that's a good.
Could you try it? I guess the downside is if it has a fiscal impact, then it could get shut down, and then we're left with nothing.
Right.
This was,
first and foremost,
better than nothing.
to us, the importance is to get our base flood elevation requirements to be 2 foot, which meets the state recommendations, the recommendations from the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission. And so that's our main priority, but we felt like we should look at this advisory area. Since we're opening it up to town vote, we should consider that. But yeah, that's a fair point, something to consider. I don't know what the level of support for that would be, but it's certainly something that can be brought up and discussed. It makes me a little nervous yeah.
I mean, 4 feet of sea rise seems like a lot in 80 years. So it also feels like, I guess the devil's advocate for that would be that we're putting a lot of stock in these models.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of push back on that a little bit, these models have, so the 2100 year or 4 foot of sea level rise with storm surge is kind of the moderate approach to the assumption for sea level rise. There are, should we not change anything for fossil fuel consumption and all other, issues like that, we could see higher sea level rise than that. So I feel like we've kind of, by picking that intermediate approach to fossil fuels reduction, we kind of have protected ourselves from being way off in terms of the models, but better to use the science that we have available to us now than nothing is kind of my thought there. And by making it advisory, it makes for a great education point. We have the opportunity to communicate with property owners and talk about what this sea level rise models were developed based on, because we really haven't had, yes, we had sea rise, the study conducted, but we really haven't had the public outreach component of it. And so this could be a great way to initiate that process so that people start to understand what these maps mean and what informs them and what it could look like for the town of Exeter. But keep in mind, it's only associated with the coastal portions. And so these models, unlike the Cape study, these models don't look at inland flooding that might occur. Whereas the Cape study, if we adopted the flooding scenarios modeled in the Cape study, it would dramatically increase the number of properties that would be affected. So I'm happy to, consider comments. The next step would be discussions with a second meeting with Master Plan Oversight Committee, and then off to the Planning Board.
Okay. So if anyone, other comments we can send to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for your work on that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a step forward.
Mostly thanks to Rockingham Planning Commission. So they, Maddie DeLono has done this through a technical assistance program support project from RPC.
Oh, cool.
With coastal funding.
Nice. Didn't realize that. Neat. Good. Okay, so we've closed the McDonald Conservation Area. The gate is effectively closed and actually closed. So we're just announcing that this is how it's been the last several years.
And just a few points on that, you can still head into the gate. So there's room for 2 cars to pull up to the gate, and you can still access the property by walking. And I think it's worth acknowledging the folks who spent the season opening and closing the gate twice a day for us. And that is Diane Arnheim, who's the property owner where we have the conservation easement at the McDonald property. Bruce White, who lives on the south side of the river there, Brian and Laura McSweeney, and Cheyenne Venturini. So they all together have helped with opening and closing and coverage during vacations and you name it. So it's I'm happy
as much as I wish the property could be open year round, I'm happy we were able to kind of find a solution that works. It did dramatically cut down on the number of calls that the police were getting in the winter months. So
Yeah, I went through there a week or so ago, and it was nice. White's Meadow looked great. Continues to be a great little pocket of woods for us in the meadow. So it's a nice area. And obviously you can go in there still. You just can't park in the parking lot. So, okay. Kristen, do you want to keep rolling? Land conservation, mowing, and recommendations for next year?
yeah, so we talked about, so David O'Hearn has been out and mowed all of the conservation properties that we hire him to do. And for Morissette, we had divided Morissette property, that's the old football practice fields, we had divided it into 3 areas. And so we would, mow one every other year, we'd swap to the next one. So by the time you get to mow section A again, it's been 3 years. And so I had asked him to kind of take a look and say, how is the woody growth coming along? We talked about this at the 2 meetings ago, or well, I guess the last meeting, which was September. And his recommendation was woody growth really was increasing there. And so his suggestion was to mow the full field in 2023. And that would kind of set everything back. And then we could, his thought was divide the field in half and just so you're getting to it every other year, which I think makes decent sense. And then we
every just stuff goes too quickly. So
yeah,
every 3rd years.
I mean, so there is a lot of multiflora rose that's in the field, and there's also autumn olive, and I don't know. I guess it's just tough to keep up with that on that cycle.
Okay, yeah, that stuff.
Very invasive.
Yeah,
It spreads like wildfire.
yeah. I do feel like this approach that we've had, and maybe it's just because I've paid more attention to it, I feel like the diversity in annuals that we've had out there has increased. So I've seen a lot more variety in the annuals that are out there, and I hope that doing every other year will still promote that. But we'll see. Good experiment, I guess. And then the other thing with regard to mowing, so we hired him to brush hog the stone property off of Powder Mill Road, and it dramatically changed. It looked really good. Yeah. So thank you, Don, for bringing that forward. He did say if we really want to reclaim that field, his recommendation would be 2 cuts in next year, in June and August, sorry. And then the following year, we could get back to the late season cut. His thought was that because there's been such a gap, if we don't do that, so his cut will trigger some resprouting. And if we don't get in there and cut it twice, that resprouting won't be reset.
Yeah, there'll be more because all the
Right.
stump sprouts go crazy.
Right. So, it sounds like a good recommendation. He's done a lot of field reclamation in other towns. And so I think he brings some really good insight there. And he did suggest we sort of need to at least do it once a year. Otherwise, we'll be in the same boat. So, we'll need to work out how we decide, if the folks who are doing it now, if they don't get to it by a certain time, then maybe it's fine for us to open it up to others, or we'll have to work that out, but we have time.
Because years ago, that stone was a very productive field, at least for hay. It'd be great if we go back to that again, or even something else. I know David's done something in a property up off of Newfields Road where he planted a lot of pumpkins. Huge pumpkin patch this year.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a great look and feel now that it's cut. It'd be great if we could put in some kind of agricultural production. I even mentioned a little bit, you know, we've talked about for a long time about a community garden. And, you know, there's some drawbacks. We don't have water there. We could put electricity in, but, you know, we could have something there because it's, one time it was a fertile piece of property. But it's another project for another day.
Sure.
Would there be community interest in it?
There's definitely community interest in a community garden. I get that inquiry pretty often, multiple times a year, I'd say anyway.
Interesting idea.
Yeah, it's just a shame we can't. Seems like we should have one, and it could be really amazing, and we just haven't figured out the site.
Yeah, so we did have a committee that was a subcommittee to this that evaluated different options. Their opinion at the time was Powder Mill, you know, their goal was to try to find something kind of in town-ish. And so, you know, even Rains, so currently we have an agreement with the farmer that on the south side of the barn, we could put in a small community garden there, and we have the well, and but we really just haven't stepped forward with it because even that seems too far out of town, I guess. I don't know, but.
Well, the traffic and the parking
Yep.
is difficult there
Yep.
because of the road. I think it's a little less problematic on Powder Mill, but less lower volume. And you could probably, you know, carve out a spot as you go into the field of maybe 3 or 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
Plus, you could have vehicles parked on the road, but
without water or electricity, it seems challenging to start a new community garden.
well, we've talked about some places bringing a water buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, you could put a tank there, and yeah, I don't know if DPW
Oh, yeah, no, it's
have an ability to fill a water tank.
Yep. So food for thought, I guess.
There's nothing deed-wise that would prevent us from using that property in that fashion,
No.
which
There
is
is a
what
ga-
stopped us in some other properties, right? It's just,
Yeah, Gilman Park. So Gilman,
yeah. Okay.
there is a gas line that we'd need to, you know, consider kind of close to the access way, but I think you could fit parking.
yeah, away from it, yeah.
All right. So we just need I guess we're not prepared to talk budget, but I think we can figure out a way to fund less than $2,000. We have to figure out that for this mowing for next year.
Yeah, I think we can
The
figure
additional funding. We do have conservation funds as a backup. Okay. And then Rains farm project update.
Yeah, so I do have positive things to report on that. So as you know, we received a LCHIP grant. The residents supported a match of a LCHIP grant of $100,000. The residents supported a match of $100,000, and the Conservation Commission approved $50,000. So we had $250,000 to complete the repairs at Rains Barn. That was approved effective March of 2022. I had put out 2 RFPs, and one of them with an extension, and really did not get any qualified responses. And so, you know, I had kind of been in touch with Bedard Preservation, who's the person who did the initial historic structures update that identified the costs and the repair needs for the barn to bring it into, you know, a safe and structurally sound facility. And so I've been in touch off and on. They were busy on other projects and finally kind of made some headway, and they are willing to complete the project, but the repairs are $50,000 more. We've had substantial increases in materials and inflation, and so I was kind of scratching my head because basically the $50,000 price shortage or funding shortage. Sorry, I'm not speaking very well tonight. I think my brain is tired. But the funding shortage basically would allow us to make all of the structural repairs needed, purchase the clapboards for the entire barn, but paint and replace only 2 sides, which will keep it buttoned up and safe, but really won't visually address the barn's condition. It won't be a finished project, which is a little disappointing. They would focus on replacing the south side and the east side, which is the side that faces the field, because those are the worst. And so I really struggled with that, but I want to move the project forward. So I submitted a scope of work amendment to LCHIP because in order to secure the funds, we need to be in a contract with Bedard before the end of December. And 2, we need, if we don't have any additional funds, so if we're moving forward, we need LCHIP to approve that amended scope of work. And so I started that process. The town, we had met the Rains Farm subcommittee stewardship that was dealing with the LCHIP project. Had met, we refined the scope. I presented it to Rustine. He felt like there was sufficient, we did enough legwork to justify going with Stephen Bedard. And so I'm waiting to hear back from LCHIP on that. And once I do, we're ready to, sign a contract and move forward. LCHIP has assured me that we'll hear from them before in enough time to get our contract executed. In the meantime, I just spent a lot of time grant searching, and I came across the T-Mobile Hometown Grants, which is a $50,000 grant. It closes at the end of December. It's their point is basically funding to improve community facilities and promote public spaces, and so it seems like a great alignment, in my opinion, for Rains. We would know if we received the grant by 30 to 60 days after the deadline. So we could know by the end of January or the end of February if we were successful in getting that grant. So I've been scrambling to get a grant application pulled together, got letters of support from the Exeter Historic Society, the Merrills, who used to be the former farmer who had farmed that property forever, who also are strong advocates for promoting agriculture in New Hampshire. I reached out to the Word Barn. They provided one. I'm presenting to the Facilities Advisory Committee, I think later this week or next. I have to look that up. And the Select Board on the 14th. So we'll have 5 of those, hopefully those 5 letters of support. And fingers crossed, if that happens, then we would amend our contract with Bedard and for the full scope of work. So that's kind of our... And
then you need to resubmit to LCHIP or
yes, but I think that would be I think it would be a quick approval because it would be going back to the original scope of work.
Right. It's not a one-way thing. Yeah. We're not going to lose. Right.
I
it's just
guarantee
a change
that
in
would
scope
not,
of work. Yeah.
That would not put our prod.
Right.
I guarantee they would still fund.
Yeah, they're still going to. Yeah.
Fund the repairs if they're getting the full project. Anyway, so I'm really hopeful for that. And we don't need to talk through maybe tonight what it would mean if we didn't get that, but there is a contingency plan in place. It's not a great one, but it's seeking other grant funds like Moose Plate, which would delay it until 2024. and could cost more and all sorts of fun stuff associated with that. So I'm really hopeful that the timing just seemed perfect for it, and it's a chunk of change. It's a good chunk of change, and that would fund the exterior clapboard repair and painting on all 4 sides. You know, we'd still get the interior work done. We'd get the structural work done. So hold your breath. Well, no, but fingers crossed.
And I saw, you sent it to the subcommittee, and I haven't commented, but it seems like Don gave you some feedback on the application.
Yep. And Sally provided some edits as well. So I feel like it's a pretty sound application. I hope.
Great. Thanks for all your work on that. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and thanks to the subcommittee, because it's really helpful to have a sounding board in between CONCOM meetings, because otherwise I don't know that we could get the timing right to get it completed in time.
And speaking of rains, we had a fun sky watch, just jumping into rain, staying on rains and jumping around in our schedule here. The sky watch was cool. I took my kids there, and it was a legit full event. There was a lot of people there.
There was.
Like 30 or...
Yeah, I think it was 28, something like that.
Yeah.
But,
The barn was full. All the seats were full.
Yep. Standing room only.
Standing room only.
We don't have enough seats, I guess, for big events out at Rains yet.
Yeah. I think it was at the New Hampshire Astronomical Society that came and gave a presentation. The guy was super knowledgeable and passionate about it, maybe to a fault, because he spoke for longer than my kids wanted.
Yeah, so he did a presentation in the barn of what, they could show us in the night sky, and then there were volunteers from NHAS out in the field who set up like their hunky giant telescopes.
There was 3 or 4 big telescopes.
And then
one was homemade, which was really cool.
Yeah. They would focus it on an object, and then people would kind of filter through and take a peek, and then they'd modify it and point it at something else. So it was really neat.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous, clear night. The weather held for us. So.
Yeah, and since then I've actually had somebody reach out and say, hey, I hear Rains is really good for observing stars at night. Is that an approved night use of the property? So I said yes, and I informed the police department that might happen. And I was like, oh, that's so funny that you said that. We just had this event. And he's like, yeah, I was there. That's what made me realize that it was a good spot to view the stars. So, I mean, I think that could be a really fun event to hold more regularly, and maybe in warmer months too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the layout of it was a little, I thought everything was going to be up by the barn, but it makes sense. The telescope, they didn't want to carry them that far. Yeah. So the telescopes were set up near the parking lot, and that worked out well.
But getting people from the barn back to the telescopes after dark was a little...
Right. We could have had some more lights or something. Maybe we need to get a series of lanterns and store them out there or something.
They don't want you using a regular flashlight, right? Because apparently it takes, what do you say? It takes like 30 minutes for your eyes to acclimate, so they only let you use, or only encourage you to use a red flashlight. And so,
but then cars are pulling in and out too, so it's like, I don't know.
Just getting blinded anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not everyone had red flashlights, so yeah, it was a little nuanced getting people back to the telescope safely.
That was a fun event. Okay. So, any update on the Grisette Mendez property?
No, your packet had an update. Actually, last month's packet had an update, and I haven't heard back from the state. So,
about the wetland issue that was raised.
So, let's see. I shared his information with the state and photos, and asked if a permit was issued, and I haven't heard back. The other thing he raised was the no hunting signage. I did install no hunting signage out there. I just completed it, so 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago. So some turkey hunting season had started, but there were existing no hunting signs out there. They just had Mr. Grisat's name on it. So I think we were still fine in terms of maintaining a sign boundary. And we have some really cool signs now. Apparently the old Tyvek signs that we used to buy, Tyvek is in shortage right now. And so I had no idea, but I couldn't order additional no hunting signs. And then the stuff that we had locally all said private property, no hunting, fishing, or trespassing. So I ordered custom signs that just say no hunting and Town of Exeter and a phone number. So they're in great condition. They were easy to put up. They're pretty stiff and thick plastic. So hopefully they'll last. And it made for an easy install.
Excellent. Okay, moving right along, unless there's any comments on that.
We can skip 5. That didn't happen.
5.
That was kind of a placeholder, but I had somebody come by. Well, we don't need to skip it, I guess. Sorry. I had the property owner for the Amundsen property come in. This is off of Garrison Lane, and it abuts the Little River. They came in wanting to do he had said cutting back 2.5 acres of weeds that are out there. And I said, fine, I'll meet you out there. I want to take a look. Get in touch with me, but he hasn't been back. He was meeting with a contractor and meeting with Unitil, and his plan was to allow his contractor to access the property from the gas line easement off of Brentwood Road, but the Little River is there. So there's some parts and pieces that weren't really making sense. So I don't know if he just met with the gas line company and they said no, and so that was no longer viable, or what the plan is. The other thing is looking on the aerial, there really doesn't appear to be 2.5 acres of non-treed area. His plan was to cut back the annual growth that's out there, and he had access to hundreds of pine trees from UNH, and he was going to cut back the growth and add pine trees to restore the area, but it doesn't quite line up with what the aerials show or my view of it from walking the property. So it's unclear at this point. Kind of a head scratcher.
So that's a head scratcher. This would be off Garrison. The neat area, though, that abuts a lot of our conservation area. We have an easement on it.
We do. We have a large easement. I don't remember what it is, but and then they have an exclusion area that cuts out a portion for their house. But that's a very deep lot. It goes all the way down from Garrison Lane to the Little River.
And it's back off of where that beach trail is.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. So next up, trails. We had a what I thought was a productive trails committee meeting last week. It was on Thursday. Kyle was there. Dave Short phoned in, and
Bill.
Who else was here?
Bill.
Bill came, and Toby from the Fort Rock Riders. And we talked about a lot of different things. Closure of some of these little side trails that are in north of 101 in Oaklands. Toby actually has these signs that say trail closed for revegetation, and it has Exeter Conservation Commission on it. And I don't know why he ended up with them, but
I think we used them a long time ago, and I don't know how.
And someone took them down, and somehow yeah. So we have signs, and we just need to figure out how to go about closing off some of those spur trails up there that we identified as not effective trails. Kyle, thanks for your help with that. Some of those
So
decisions.
Kyle brought some maps from, is it Strava or Trailforks, I don't know which, but showed heat maps. Do you want to talk? I don't know if we still have them, but it was interesting for me to see how different users use the different trails.
Yeah, it was basically Strava tracks people that use GPS when they're to track their devices, and they upload to their app. And you can then crowdsource which trails are being used the most by different kinds of users. I think most bikers probably use it, or some similar. I'd say walkers probably not so much. Runners probably are more likely to use it. But one of the things that made it kind of that it's interesting to look at is the way that different types of users use different parts of their trail system. So this would be the biker heat map. And if you notice the part that's in the upper left-hand corner, which is on the, I believe, the Shaftmaster property over there, that's on private property. Very popular with the bikers. Bikers tend to like what I would call like the plate of spaghetti kind of trails. Very efficient as far as they get a lot of mile of trail per square foot or whatever acreage. And it just kind of winds around. Same thing down south of the gas line where Kristen's pointed out. That's the trail. It's called Accelerate. It's kind of abuts where the Rose Farm property is going to be. But it's a very popular trail for the bikers. And then you can see they also use the main trail system that's up on, the rest of Henderson Swayze. The Accelerate, that's also, a lot of it's on private property. The Toomey property down there, I think it is. And then, Kristen, if you switched over to the runner-walker heat map, which is right here, you can see that the Shaftmaster and Accelerate get, like, basically walkers don't like to walk for an hour and not really go anywhere. They want to kind of do the main trail systems where they can do a loop or something like that and maybe see some more different things. Interesting, I think.
Do we have this for the north side as well?
We do.
Ooh.
So that's the biker heat map for up there. Yeah, and you can see where all those trails are. That's all on private property. The north one where all the congestion is. And then so then for the walkers, they don't like to wander around in the same area. They want to kind of move. But interesting long term, if we look at that, the private property, if that were to ever go away, it's going to be something that's going to make the cycling community pretty sad. Kristen, does that cover what you?
Yeah.
Very neat.
I mean, I guess we kind of expect that but it was neat to see evidence of.
Yeah, and also I'd say most of the new trails that are happening on private property. Like there's really not very many trails in the I guess 8 years that I've been riding here that have gone in on conservation property, town property.
Do we have a schedule for the next trail committee?
No, we haven't been scheduling them regularly. I think we should do it though, and probably annually. We may need. We want to make progress in the trail network. And some of the things we talked about, we definitely will need more meetings. So.
Was the last meeting recorded?
It was recorded, yeah. Yeah, it was on. For better or worse, it was on TV. One of the things that, I mean, it seems like one of the things we talked about and I've come around to is the need for better signage in the network. And how do we do it? We have, the trail kiosks that are out there that in the numbers, there's like numbers and there's a few of those still, but I think we all agreed that that system has challenges because the trails change and it requires people to be able to read a map and understand where they are in relation to the world around them, which is hard. And then we have blazes for some areas, have blazes. And then now we have trail signs in a lot of the Oaklands has signs like this green sign that into Newfields that the mountain biking communities put up. So to me, it seems like we do have a bit of a mishmash of different things. And then we have the cedar signs too that say that we've put up that say like to Russell lot that way and to the Oakland's lot. Watson lot. So we have a few of those. So it's trying to come up with a plan. I think there's a need for more signage and more resources to help people stay found because people getting lost is a real issue.
What about QR codes? Is that something that, everyone has a cell phone with them typically at all times these days? Is that something that, it would be just like a blaze on a tree?
Yeah.
I don't know. Scan it, you get the map, you get a
map with where.
So currently, we have a QR code that leads you to the town's website, and the thought was, as should maps change, you'd just update the website and not have to update, you still would need to. Anyway, and that's available on the kiosks, and then at various points within the main trail network, there's those smaller interior signs. But it does seem like part of the challenge is the folks who are having trouble just reading a map is a challenge. So, I don't know. To me, I'm a proponent of promoting the OpenStreetMap approach where it's a website, you don't need a certain app, you can pull it up on any phone and it will tell you where you are. Mm-hmm. And it has our trail network because it's populated by the OpenStreetMap data.
Yeah, I think that approach makes sense too. Definitely for that.
One thing, Toby counted approximately counted the number of these signs that are up, and he said it's between 40 and 50 right now. Most of them north of 101, most of them on private property up there.
Yeah, most of them are north of the power lines, north of 101, yeah.
And when he puts them up, he puts them he uses a ladder because he's had some problems with people stealing them to get them kind of out of reach. And he tends to put them onto the trail a little bit so you don't see them until you start on the trail usually. And then you say, oh, now I know what trail I'm on. So that's kind of the process he's used.
Right, so these signs it's not like a major junction with 5 signs pointing, this way is this way is that. They're more on the trail after the junction.
And so these signs are made locally. I think they cost about $45 or so. So the price has been paid for by the Fort Rock Riders just through their fundraising. But they're also they're composite. And they actually made some modifications to it because the original design, they had problems with woodpeckers attacking them. So they've got kind of like reinforced plates around them. And
yeah, it looks like it's plastic or something with aluminum on either side.
So durable, but yeah.
Are these going up on public as well, or is it just?
They are. There's some of them are in both Oaklands and Henderson Swayze. Really, I think there's only one that's the other. There's 2 of these Western Front. There's one up western
There's one
front.
up, there's a Dean's Dream up,
And a
and I
Dean's
think,
Dream.
I don't think that Toby thought there would be any reason not to do it, and so he thought he was, but then there was some question by the Conservation Committee, so he stopped, and he has a bunch of signs that he's sitting on right now, but hasn't, they're sitting in his garage.
I was just curious. I wasn't meant to open up a can of
Yeah.
worms.
No, that was, I think I did that last year, so you're good.
Okay.
But I guess I'm coming around to it, we have this mishmash of signs, and it is nice when you have a cohesive trail signage. I don't know that we're gonna have that given all the different owners of property and users, so I guess, I was originally not 100% sold on these screen signs, but I think I'm come around to the concept as we need something to move forward, and I don't have a better alternative. I think we also need some combination of more signs and maybe the QR codes and signage at or near trailheads or major junctions. I'm not sure.
I think definitely signs that point towards the different parking lots in the trail system are very useful. If you say,
Yeah.
Ironically, Toby said that between the Trails Committee meeting and today, he had some hikers wandering around his neighborhood. He lives on the north side there, that he had to drive all the way over to the trestle or the Oakland lot because they'd gotten all twisted around. And
Oh, really? This just happened in the last
this
few
happened
days.
last week, and so especially with the
Oh, man.
earlier sunset, people kind of get stuck out there. And
Yeah.
you say, yeah, they have their cell phones, but then the first thing they do is they use their flashlight, which means the cell phone doesn't really last too long. And so I think the most recent rescue the fire department had to do out there, at least the person recognized that they were going to be in trouble and called for help before their phone became out of batteries. But it does happen, and when they can say, I'm on this trail, I think it's very helpful for the people trying to do the rescue.
Right, and ideally, we'd have tools so everyone can not get lost and need a rescue, but so it does seem like there's an issue, and we could serve our trail users better through some combination of signage, using the trail names that have been established.
We talked about closer blazes on Oakland's, the Red Trail,
Maybe
especially
reblazing.
from the Watson lot down south to the tunnel on the west side.
And I think another thing we talked about was that there are kind of common areas where people that are lost tend to end up, and we could maybe identify those and maybe put a kiosk there, just so that when the people are, constantly being found in the same place, and then having a map there maybe help them.
Yeah, that was an idea, to contact the fire department and see if they have the records of where people are calling from when they're lost or something like that. I don't know if that would pan out, but maybe it could shine some light on the vortex of the Camel's Hump area, that a lot of weird little trails or wherever, or if it's all Oakland. So I said we would bring some stuff back to the committee, sort of report out to the committee. I don't know there was anything to decide per se right now or for us to take action on, but I guess I'm curious if people are supportive of this approach. I think more work needs to go into exactly where signs are going to go and what signs they would be, and actually make some decisions.
Yeah, do we even have a map of like these trail names anywhere? Like if I'm on Hillzilla or something?
Yeah.
It's nice knowing that I'm on that trail, but does that coordinate with a map?
Yeah, right. How do you find out How did,
that is.
right, what if you see the sign that says Western Front?
Is there
If you
some-
don't know there's a map,
Right.
it doesn't mean anything.
It's just like a name.
It's just a name.
But it looks like Kristen's pulling up some masterpiece here.
Yeah, so if you go to OpenStreetMap, it will, all the major like mapping software now that shows trails, like
And this is-
Gaia, GPS, OpenStreetMap, Strava,
They do have
Trail
a
for
name.
have trail.
Yeah, those names are all in there.
And is this something we can advertise even though it's an open, like forum, open base kind of thing?
I don't see why we couldn't. I can't read those names, but.
Me neither,
they're
but
there.
I'll assume that there's,
Oh yeah, the font
Okay.
keeps getting smaller there.
that's handy. Okay.
And I don't know if they're all named, you know, there may be some, I guess they are, but some sections are clearer named than others.
And I guess like so I didn't quite realize this, but we talked about it on Thursday. So the way they get the names, because to me it does become confusing to have so many different names to try to remember what trail is what section is what name. But apparently the way this map gets populated is through, there's a local user who can edit these maps. And as the trails were put in, apparently either through Strava or some other something, when somebody rides or runs or walks on a trail, they have to name it. Is that right, Kyle? Am I saying that? Or
It's like a segment
Drew,
that
is
turns.
Yeah, if someone makes a segment, then they have to name it,
yeah,
and that usually that
But
becomes
segments
trail
usually
name.
are on existing trails already, you can't,
Well, I know.
they're different than,
I know on the new trails, like I said, they haven't been too many of them on town property, but up north they've done, like Shadows Run was one of the trails, and that was named after the owner's dog who passed away, or Olive Branch was named after someone's grandmother, so it's kind of, they try to do stuff like that for the landowner, I think.
so there is some control over the maps, is what we learned, that we have some admin who can edit the Trail Fork map that seems to then populate other maps, was what we talked about. But it does still feel like a little bit of a black box, how these things appear in their names.
Guy in a corner.
Yeah, that's
and
just
and
what it
how
feels
long
like.
and how long it takes. So say we closed a trail, how long it would take before and that person removed the trail from OpenStreetMap, how long it would take before that filtered into, say, Strava.
Right, yeah, and how do they cross-pollinate each other? I don't think we need to get hung up on that. I mean, for signs, I think maybe our focus is less on the names. I guess I would, maybe where we start maybe is on the
Signs good.
signs to parking lot. And maybe signs closer to the parking lots where we are advertising the open street map. Maybe that would be our role to begin with. And we could use this for this company for the signs, I guess, or we could talk to the cedar sign router guy too.
Yeah, I mean, what we talked about on Thursday was getting buy-in on this style of design. Is the Conservation Commission as a whole supportive of this design? And if so, then is that what we should move to? And if not, what do we want to do? You know, I don't.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Well, it sounds like we need signage, period. So I think we should get comfortable with a style and then adjust from there. If a year from now we realize this was a terrible choice, which hopefully we don't, but I think we should head in a direction with it
Yeah.
versus just saying, well, we'll think about it. Let's come back next month and let's talk about it. I feel like we
Yeah.
keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and we have made some improvements here and there, so it's not like we're not doing anything, but I agree, we can't just keep talking, we should just take action. And I could see us getting signs like this saying
Looks great.
2 parking area.
Yeah.
I don't know if they should have distances. I don't know how specific we want to get. Maybe not. Maybe we just,
I like the idea of having distances. I think it's, it's challenging when,
Well, if you're at a point where you need the sign to know where you're going, it's definitely helpful to know if it's 1/10 of a mile or 2 miles, or, I mean, that can kind of indicate how much trouble you're in.
but would we say, so if you're on, I don't know, pick a trail, would we say like, I don't know, a 1/10 of a mile to this junction, and then from that one we'd need a sign that says a 1/10 of a mile to the next junction,
That's
you know?
right,
like,
yeah, how
it's
many
just-
breadcrumbs do you
Right,
need to
I
get
don't-
someone out?
Well, and again, that's kind of the challenge with multiple names, because
It's not just like follow the
You're-
new trail to the parking lot, which we have. I mean, that is, we have the red trail in Oakland. We also talked about, should we try and blaze additional blazing in Oakland, because we just have that one red loop around the perimeter, but there are other trails in the network up there. Because I do think the blazes help. When I'm up there, it's a sign of, okay, I know, I'm still on track. But I don't know, it's hard. It's hard to make these decisions. But it sounds like everyone is supportive of more signs. I don't know if we have budget this year that we could allocate towards signs.
I can bring back the amounts at the next meeting.
Maybe that's something, we have some last minute lumber sign.
I mean, maybe one thing would be, since we already have a lot of these signs for the trail names, is that's the design of the trail name signs, but if we wanted to have cedar signs, which we already have out there that point to like the lots or for navigation, it would be kind of a way for it to have a distinctive design for each kind of sign. And then, you could have like a sign that says trestle lot, but then you could also have just smaller, like diamond-shaped signs along the way that would just kind of, or blazes of a given color that you would say, oh, these are going to take you to that lot,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it all kind of depends.
Yeah, I think Henderson Swayze, that would be a good solution, because you do have consistent colors getting you back to the parking lots, And then maybe the solution is adding additional blazed colors at Oakland's. So it's not just the red loop, you have components off the red loop. I will say, as the person that did the majority of the blazing, it's a lot of work. And that was just a portion of the trails, and so.
It's another thing to maintain.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's worth it if it's keeping more people safe. Maybe we just need to expand who's helping with that,
Where you want a bike?
No, I don't
Be a lot
bike.
faster.
Yeah, no, not really.
I don't know.
Getting
with
off
the,
your bike every-
Getting on and off the paint, yeah. All right, well, there's, I guess, a need to keep talking and thinking through this, so maybe let's let these ideas marinate a little more and we can,
But I can bring the budget back next time.
Yeah.
It sounds like everyone's okay with those signs. I haven't heard anyone say otherwise.
yeah,
And then we just decide.
okay, so we'll start.
When and where?
I thought Toby had said the cedar signs were breaking down. Like, are they in good shape?
So, I mean, some of them, the trees that they were attached to fell down, and
I mean, not the junction markers. I know those are old. Those are from 2009, but the cedar signs, we just,
Yeah, they
That's
shouldn't be
insane.
rotten. I think he was saying they fade into the background, meaning like the wood can weather a bit and they don't pop because they kind of turn grayish.
makes sense.
Other than the painted part, which everyone I've seen still looks good to me. But I think he's also thinking about it on a bike, and people traveling at different speeds, you see different things. All right, so the first priorities though are those trail closure signs and brushing in some of those things, and then figuring out what we're going to do for signs. All right, so we'll keep talking, but I appreciate the feedback, support here as we muddle our way through this. All right, any other reports? We have the outreach event from, you led a kayaking.
we did. Kristen and I did.
Oh, that's right, you both won. I heard it was good.
It was good. We had, how many boats did we have out with us? Was it 8 maybe, or?
Sure.
I think they had a couple extra, but
I think that's.
but everybody got to use the new kayak launcher at the dock, which worked really well. We had a bunch of people that hadn't kayaked much before, and they had no problems using it. And we kind of went up to as far as we could to the string bridge, and talked about that a little bit, and then started to head down river towards the 101 bridge, and kind of made a decision when we got about maybe halfway that was probably a good distance. And then everybody got back, and I'd say that it was a pretty good start for the program there.
Yeah, it was great. And actually, 2 people that were at that attended the Sky Watch event, so they learned about the event from the kayak event. So it's good to have kind of repeat visitors.
Nice.
And it's it's a great opportunity. So I think it was $25 for a
perfect.
day that you can rent a kayak there, and that seems like it's under what you would normally pay. And you just have to get the key and unlock the boat, and you can go. I actually made
I was
this.
wondering how that whole system works.
I think they give you the key and the paddle and life jacket.
Wow.
And then my suggestion would be that they're all single kayaks, but maybe if they had a couple of doubles that you could rent as well, that would be good for families. Because it's really nice. Like, as we saw, when you go downriver, not very far, you get away from the road, and there's no buildings or anything. It's great. We saw, I think we saw an eagle. What else did we see? A kingfisher, I think. And I mean, it was pretty good.
Nice.
Display of the wildlife of Exeter.
That's awesome.
Definitely a good event to repeat. And Parks and Rec is interested in doing that. Well, the person who we partnered with, she couldn't make it for that event, and now she's left, but they are advertising that position, so maybe next year there'll be another person that we could collaborate with. Because I think it's a great way to promote the kayak rental system, as well as the Conservation Commission's interest in educating people about the river and the resource.
Nice. Yeah, we should definitely add that to our successful event list. I mean, we got to keep track of all these events that are good. It's definitely We could do it again in May, probably. By the time April is always a little higher flows and everything. But definitely another spring or summer event. Great. All right, do we have other committee reports?
So I put in the other committees that kind of share a similar, a resource-based mission there, and I thought that would be a good way to keep communication so all boards are aware of what the other boards are doing. Trevor attended the River Study Committee, and Don, I don't think I saw you at the last one.
I saw it, but I saw it on TV.
So I know, you can check in on the videos, but the last meeting, Paul Vlasic gave quite a bit of updates between the Powder Mill dam feasibility study and where that's at to the siphon upgrades and other things. So that sewer siphon.
You said powder mill, you mean pickpocket?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Pickpocket, okay.
Sorry, again, brain. So that would be a good one to tune into, or check the minutes out so that you can get a sense if those projects are of interest to you.
That was the most recent River Study Committee?
Yeah, so it would have been, not that long ago.
Couple of weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. Okay, 10/20. Yep, it's on the website.
Yep.
I like the new website.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah. And then the Sustainability Committee, we talked about this before, but the single-use plastics town ordinance is moving forward to the select board on the 14th. So we'll do our first presentation that night. The Energy Committee and the Community Power Aggregation Committee are making great progress. I created a timeline of the community power program so that people can see what the next steps are and when that could potentially be implemented, because we've had quite a few phone calls of people saying, our energy bills are high, what's happening with that? And then the tree committee hosted a big tree program and added some tree labels to Swayze Parkway. So it was a pretty active fall for all of them. And I know this has come up in both the Sustainability Committee recently and in former energy committees. They talked about some sort of collaborative meeting where all of your committees kind of get together and give periodic updates of the things that you're focused on and where you could collaborate and share resources and maybe promote stuff as a larger group. So there's interest in some of the other committees if there's interest in this board as well.
Yeah, I heard that from someone on the Sustainability Committee. They were interested in having a joint meeting with us. I know when I first started, I feel like we had one of these all board meetings, and that hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
But I'm open to the idea of a joint meeting with other people. That could be a good idea to sort of get some energy momentum from other people in town. I think we all work on similar things, and it makes sense to share ideas. I don't know how we would do it. Would it be our schedule seems sort of, we've slowed down. I mean, there was I think a solid year where we were like nonstop reviews of projects, and we appear to have more time. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. But if we continue not to have applications, it seems like an obvious thing to meet with another group more.
Yeah.
Obviously now you're involved in both groups more, so it also would make sense for you.
And if there's more detail from the committees, if you want me to include that kind of thing in the written report, I'm happy to do that as well. But I do think there's benefit to sharing across these committees, so you're all aware of what each other are up to. And maybe seek ways that you can collaborate on projects. Like I think outreach around the floodplain ordinance would be a great opportunity, or the Sustainability Committee and the Energy Committee are interested in reviewing the building code, Exeter building codes, to see if we can adopt a more proactive code than the state does, because the state is delayed quite a bit in what they have adopted. Maybe that's something that's of interest to you guys. I don't know, but hearing about it, I think, is the first step, right?
Yeah. I mean, we could also just, the easiest way to do it would be for them to come to one of our meetings or us to go to one of their meetings, right? Practically speaking.
Yeah.
When do they, if this would just be individual groups, if we did the Sustainability Committee?
Yeah, so sustainability is the first Tuesday of the month. Let me look at a calendar. So, sustainability is the first Tuesday of the month, and Energy Committee is the second Wednesday, but they meet during the day, usually 3:30.
Okay. But the Sustainability is first Monday, you said?
First Tuesday.
Tuesday. So just be the week before our meeting. Okay. Well, we can think about trying to make a time when we get several folks available. I don't know. Throwing out ideas.
Just food for thought, yeah. But it's good. It's good to know. We can talk about that at each committee and figure out what works.
Okay. What's next? Do we want to approve the minutes? I looked through them. They look fine to me. So I will motion that we approve them unless anyone has edits.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've approved the minutes. Any other correspondence? I know in the packet there were some things. Is there anything we didn't touch on already?
I did receive something today from Brendan Quigley about the Glare-Ups project. DES had some requests for additional information. It was all pretty minor, but if you're interested, I can give you a copy. It was, they wanted documentation that they had communicated with the abutter because they were within 10 feet. That's where they access the main, if you remember on that project. This is off of Continental Drive, the shoe. So they come in off of another property onto their site. And so they needed sign off from that abutter. They wanted to be sure that correspondence with Fish and Game was incorporated, and they just included the standard specs for notification if you come across, and the list of protected species during the construction site. And there were a couple other things like that, like standard stuff, sort of. But, they wanted to be sure the functions and values report addressed the vernal pool, and they provided supplemental information about that.
Can I just take a peek at that if
Yeah.
you have a chance?
Yeah, I'll forward it.
And we still don't have any progress or any activity on the Ray farm. That's gone silent.
Correct.
From what I know.
Planning board, the Carlisle project is going to the planning board at their next meeting, which is next week, wait, sorry, I'm on December, the 17th. Oh, yeah, next week. So that is the property that was relying on the right-of-way that connects Epping Road with, crosses over the Ray Farm development and connects to the property in the back. And so they're coming to the planning board for site, what is it? I think approval to construct the road. And so you'll see some more information about that.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot going on. And I saw some news story that the Gateway project got some additional funding. I don't know if that actually means it's gonna get built, but they got some state funding. So, a lot going on, development-wise, and all these projects that came through last year, or this past year. Any other correspondence? I don't think I have any. But we had the New Hampshire ACC conference.
Oh,
How
yep,
about that?
Did I skip that? I may have missed that. Didn't make it onto the agenda.
sorry, no.
Just
Connor, what
any
did
quick
you want to talk about?
highlights, lowlights from that event?
I don't think so. I think they focused on something that I guess my company has been focusing on as well, just as work-wise, is getting younger people involved. I think the demographic there was a little above the age that they were hoping for. But it was a good turnout for a nice day, so.
Yeah. What workshops did you sit in on?
I know, that's what I'm trying to remember.
Sorry.
I need to look at the sessions
okay.
again. I remember my first one was a climate adaptation one. Just hoping to bring more of but it sounds like we're doing it with the sea level rise. Then my afternoon is, I have to look it up now, but which ones did you attend? Did we, because we didn't run into each other
So
in the
I
afternoon.
was, I didn't attend the first workshop because I was doing the registration, but the second workshop was about I think it was Conservation Fund best practices, but we follow that here. And then, although I did learn one thing, which I hadn't realized in the past, so I always thought that when the town didn't approve the town budget, you went to the default budget. But what I didn't realize is the default budget may or may not be the budget that the Conservation Commission was granted. The town, when you come up with a default budget, it's something that's calculated and you have to back out some other things, like, I don't know, Don, maybe you know better than me, but it just was a little surprising. In my mind, I always thought that if the town didn't pass the budget, we'd just get last year's budget, but it's not that simple.
Well, you get the overall budget,
Right.
but the town, through the select board or through the town administrator, can rearrange where the monies go. So say, okay, well, we lost all this money, but we still need to spend a lot of money plowing roads, so we're gonna put money there, and we'll take it from the Conservation Commission budget. So as long as the bottom line meets the bottom line, there's a discretion then to move it around from the different compartments.
So that was surprising to me.
Okay, that's right. That's a little different. But that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. That they would have the flexibility to do that.
And then the second budget one that I attended, so I was really hopeful to watch the transfer of development rights presentation from Dover, but they had to cancel, and they are going to do a lunch and learn, and that might be insightful. So Dover uses TDR money to fund their conservation fund, and they...
What's TDR?
So it's transfer of development rights, TDR. And so I don't understand how it works, but I can just speak from the Conservation Commission side in Dover. We have a very robust conservation fund. It's dramatically gone up in value, like over $1 million in a very short period of time. So I don't know, it was just, I don't know how it works. on the back end, which is why I wanted to attend it. But I know the outcome of it means that they're able to move quite a few projects forward on a year-to-year basis.
Has that been enacted in Dover for a while?
Yes, but I think it wasn't always going to the Conservation Fund, I believe, is how that worked. I don't know. And I haven't been on the Conservation Commission long there, so I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a newbie there. Yeah. And then, what did you find out which one you did?
Yeah, I realized that they all blend together because I just went to a bunch of climate change ones. So really focused on sea level rise, winter's not ice out being a thing, ice not being as thick, and it really just affecting like erosion of trails in the winter. Mud season being more of a mud season. And then another one that they hit on was precipitation maintaining fairly level throughout the year, but it's going to be heavier storms and more during drought periods, so we'll just get more flooding. But overall, just trying to design more policies based on climate change, sea level rise, which I think in the Seacoast we're fairly good at.
Yeah. The last one that I attended was with Plymouth State, and they actually did a really neat program where they collaborated, actually the Plymouth Conservation Commission, they collaborated with Plymouth State and the Plymouth High School to conduct their natural resource inventory update. And so it was pretty interesting what they were able to bring together. It took a lot of really two very dedicated teachers, or a professor and a high school teacher, but it's kind of a cool experience because I guess the high school has access, all New Hampshire high schools have access to, or all New Hampshire high schools have access to Esri products for free without licensing, and they get the full suite of tools. So they can do like spatial analyses that, like hill shading and, visual renderings that we can't even dream of because we could never touch the licensing requirements. But it was pretty neat. So they focused on wildlife related stuff. They did some analysis on impact of trails on wildlife and some other things. So it was kind of a cool project, a neat way to collaborate with the high school and the college.
Oh, that's cool. All right, well, sounds like a productive conference. Any other last business? All right. Well, then our next meeting is scheduled for the 13th of December. So that'll come quick. And I guess I'll motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Nice.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All right, and we're adjourned.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.